All right, so 27th of September 2021 already, and it's a good day to get engaged. All right, well, the engagement we're talking about today is for the good of every youth in Nigeria. Welcome to Youth Assembly. My name is Sylvia Ishewe, and on Youth Assembly today, we look at ways to engage Nigerian youths to reduce their involvement in crime. And our guest today is Dr. Kabir Adamu. He is an enterprise security risk management expert and also the CEO of Beacon Consulting. Welcome, Dr. Kabir.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's my pleasure to be
All
here.
right. Okay, to all of you who have just joined us, thank you for staying with Click Niger and for engaging with our content. On Youth Assembly today, we'll ask you the question, unemployment or greed? Which do you think is responsible for the high rate of youth involvement in crime in Nigeria? Tell us at the comment section. And if you have questions, feel free to share your thoughts or ask your questions. Well, if I throw this at you now, Doctor, unemployment or greed, which do you think is responsible for the high rates of youth involvement in crime? Which one would you pick?
I wish I didn't have to choose between the two, because I think both unfortunately are responsible. We have what we call the crime triangle, and the crime triangle speaks of opportunity. It speaks of absence of a guardian, and then it also speaks of the motivation, the incentive for the criminal. So when you take unemployment and you also take greed, it falls somewhere within this crime triangle. And so, unfortunately, both of them are reasons for criminality in Nigeria. And we can pick each and discuss them. The rate of unemployment in the country at the moment is about 70% for youths. For both youths and other segments of the society, it's about 33%. But when you isolate youths alone, it's about 70%. Now, this 70% is not equal region or state to state, or even region to region. There's a difference, for instance, between the unemployment rate in Lagos, the unemployment rate in Sokoto, as an example. And so you have movement of especially youths between these locations that is driving insecurity, unfortunately.
Yes, it has really taken a worrisome dimension. But many analysts, they believe that if urgent steps is not taken, that the youth involvement in crime, insecurity could end up consuming the entire country. Like you're mentioning now, some of the implications of what is going on. But we'll ask the question: what practical steps can the government take to reduce the high level of youth involvement in Nigeria? So those are the questions we intend to answer. And now you're talking about triangle and the implication. But I would like you to start from the point of view that what do you think is really responsible? Yes, you've mentioned the triangle for this high level of youth involvement in crime. Give us the details now.
Okay. So first off is our educational system that unfortunately is not ideal in terms of the skill sets that youth require to get engaged. We lay a lot of emphasis on the component of education that is not necessarily skill-based, where, for instance, people just study cram with the hope that once they have a certificate, then that certificate will get them a white-collar job. But the world has changed, where certificates are no longer, the major requirement for getting employed. In today's world, the employer pays more attention to your skill sets than actually the certificate that you have. And not too long ago, a poll by several employers showed that. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is our educational system is focused more on certification as against skills that would make youth employable, as it were. If you are an employer, you would understand what I mean. A youth would probably have a master's degree or sometimes even a PhD degree. But in terms of the application, the skill sets that you require for him to do his job, unfortunately, you find that he's deficient. So that is where other countries, I think, have gone ahead of Nigeria. The UK and other countries, for example, expose youth at a very young age to these skill sets that are required in today's world. One good example is computer, ICT. In today's world, if you are not literate in ICT, then you are likely, no matter the number of certificates you have, you are not likely to get employed. Even if you are employed, you would have it very difficult in that first period for you to onboard and understand. And unfortunately, if you go around our schools in Nigeria, very few have that capacity and capability to engage youth in ICT and for youth to be proficient in the use of computer and other applications that the computer has. So that's number one, the nature of our educational system that emphasizes more on certificate.
So some have also, some people have also, likened it to people being poor, poverty. The poverty rate in the country are playing a huge part in their involvement, some youth's involvement in crime. Do you think this is playing a major role?
Yes. Of course, I was going to mention a couple of factors. I just started with the educational system, but the next one I would have mentioned would have been this point that you just brought up, the issue of poverty. Poverty is a driver yes, poverty is a driver of criminality, as it were, where youth. I mentioned earlier on that there is a difference in terms of the unemployment rate across states. There is also that difference in terms of poverty between states. If you pick the examples I gave, Lagos has a 4% poverty rate according to the last figures provided by the Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. It gave Lagos as 4%, and then it gave a state like Sokoto 87%. Now, what it means is that for every 10 persons you pick in Sokoto, almost 9 of them are below the poverty rate. And for every 10 persons you pick in Lagos, only about less than one, if you can have less than one, then that's what you have in Lagos as below the poverty rate. So when you see movement of youth, from Sokoto, as an example, to Lagos, it's not because they want to go there and be Okada riders or want to go and sell Dabino or Kola Nut on their head. They're looking for opportunities, greener pastures. And because of the hate messaging that has permeated Nigeria at the moment, that opportunity is blocked to them. And the tendency for them to commit crime is much more higher because of this hate messaging. So poverty is definitely a driver for insecurity. Then there are issues like drug addiction, which is also a driver of criminality. Then, of course, the opportunities, the criminal justice system that is failing to arrest and punish offenders is also a driver of insecurity. If one person commits crime and then all of a sudden he's able to build a house and the law does not arrest and punish him, then the other person who is law-abiding, who is not able to build that house, after a while he would ask himself, hey, I'm working my self, I'm sweating, I'm not able to achieve my needs, but this person who has become a criminal, he's able to do X, Y, Z, and the law is not in any way stopping him. So once the criminal justice system is not efficient, it's not effective, then the tendency for more criminal activities to be conducted is much more higher. Of course, there is also the issue of negative mobilization, where I'm sorry to say, some certain segments of the society paint another segment as black, as inhuman, with the hope that once they finish doing that, then they can use them to achieve a political objective. That also, unfortunately, is a driver of insecurity. So all of these things I've mentioned are drivers of insecurity, and the target for this are youth, mainly because, remember, as we said at the beginning, about 70% of youth are unemployed. So these perpetrators of criminality, and this includes, unfortunately, politicians, they include criminal gangs, they include bandit leaders. They see these youths as easy source of recruitment because 70% of them are unemployed. All they need to do is throw a little bit of money, sometimes less than 5,000 naira, and then they're able to get their attention and to make them do what they want to do, unfortunately.
Okay, where do you see the place of greed and lack of values in all of it, in all of this? But before you answer that, to all of you who are joining us, this is Click Niger, and we're looking at ways. Yes, we're providing solutions today. We're engaging youths, ways to engage Nigerian youths to reduce their involvement in crime. And the question we're asking today is unemployment or greed? Which do you think is responsible for the high rate of youth involvement in crime in Nigeria? Please feel free to send in your comments and share this video. And also, if you have questions, you can ask, because the doctor, an expert in security matters, enterprise security risk management expert, is right here to answer all of that. That is Dr. Kabir Adamu. So over to you, doctor. Where is the place of values in all of this?
Unfortunately, at the root of the current challenge we have is the almost total absence or the eradication of our value system. There are three major institutions in society that are responsible for shaping our values, starting from the family system to the community level. And in the community level, you have to a larger extent, at least two institutions that are responsible for shaping our value systems within the society. One of them is the educational institutions, the schools, then the religious institutions, and then, of course, outside of that, you have the media, both conventional and social media. They do, to an extent, shape our values. Now, because all of these things that I've mentioned, starting from the family down to the media, unfortunately have their own challenges, then the value system in Nigeria at the moment is almost completely depleted. People tend to respect money more than those things that we used to cherish as a people. Values of sincerity, values of integrity, values of hard work used to be those things that we cherish as a society. Today it's money. Nobody wants to bother how you got the money. As long as you have the money, then people would respect you. Even in a family, it's the person who has the most money, not the eldest person, that is respected today. And so the average youth wants to make money because he wants to be recognized and respected in society. All those other values have been dropped as a result of this. So yes, value and greed, unfortunately, strong incentives, unfortunately, for a criminality in modern day Nigeria. If even in movies, if you watch some of these movies that are coming out recently, they are showing how our values have been depreciated to the extent that what a lot of young people tend to look out for is how they will make money, not necessarily bothering whether the means through which they make that money are legal or lawful. All they're after is to make the money so that they can be recognized and respected both within their families and within the larger society.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. But us experts have suggested that the government, the ways they're going about it, should engage young people as part of efforts to reduce the high level of youth involvement in crime. So how do you think a government can go about this and solve the problem at hand?
So it's quite instructive to note that the Buhari administration in particular has come up with what it calls social investment programs. And this is under the purview of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management. Currently, that ministry is described as the super ministry because of the various portfolios that come under it. A lot of these programs are meant for youth, are meant for women, and are meant for children. Let's not forget that under this ministry is the school feeding incentive. Then there are also soft loans for youth, and especially for small and medium-scale industries. However, the challenge has been that these youths, unfortunately, are not seeing the effects of this social investment program. Remember that we opened this conversation by emphasizing and agreeing that there are almost about 70% of youths in the country are unemployed at the moment. So despite these trillions of naira that have been spent under this social investment program, some of which are targeted at youths, unfortunately, we're still seeing this huge numbers of youths that are unemployed. So there is a need for better monitoring and evaluation. There is a need for better feedback systems, mechanisms, to find out why, that despite all of these monies, the youths are not receiving this. And I think one of the major or obvious gaps is the absence of youths within these programs. For these programs to be effective, I think they should be either youth should be involved, both at the planning as well as the execution stage. Where you carry out programs without the involvement of youth, then the likelihood is this kind of challenges that we're seeing would be what we'll be monitoring. And so, despite this realization, I mean, it's very important that we realize that the Buhari administration is doing a lot in terms of social investment program. But it's also very important to realize that this lot is not meeting these youths. There are still huge number of youths that are unemployed and that unfortunately do not have any means of solving their problems. I think in spite of the social investment program, one of the major efforts, if it becomes fruitful, is if we're able to address the issues of infrastructure, especially power in the country. Because Nigerian youths are hardworking. And if we solve this problem of power, I think it would provide the platform for youth to launch themselves into this, especially small and medium scale industry. And the beauty of this small and medium scale industries, once youth are able to launch themselves and start vengeful production, then they will be able to employ other youth, and so automatically you find out that the unemployment rate among youth would reduce. But where, for instance, issues of infrastructure, especially power, is not solved, then it will be difficult for youth to engage in the kind of ventures. I mean, someone who has a barber shop who wants to, expand his business, but has to pay almost about 80% to 90% of his income to generate power. There is no way he can expand that business. But if you solve that power challenge, he's now able to use that income to invest in technology, invest in better ways of managing his business. And before you know it, if before he had just one person working for him, you'll be able to expand, have probably 5 or even more than that. And that's the way to solve unemployment, not necessarily by this social investment program. Solve the infrastructure challenge. And I think Nigerian youths will be able to do it themselves without necessarily the help of anyone.
Oh, wow. So yes, you've talked a lot about the system. People blame the Nigerian system for like the youth involvement in crime, where yes, you've mentioned power, infrastructure, and there's also the issue of the business environment. If you can explain that to us also, how it affects the youths, and then eventually them getting into crimes, we will appreciate. Go ahead.
Yes. So the business environment is not friendly at all. I mean, I run a business as an example, and the multiple taxation, the lack of clarity in terms of policy objectives sometimes, then extortion by officials. Name them. Remember that the ease of doing business campaign, which I think is headed by the Office of the Vice President and the Economic Team Advisory Council for Mr. President, has done a lot in terms of improving ease of doing business in Nigeria. But frankly, that lot is not effective. We need to do more. Apart from these things I've mentioned, the multiple taxation, extortion by officials, and extortion by banks. I think Nigeria is one of the only countries where banks, for lack of a better word, do not provide value to you as a business person. The kind of charges that they charge you, based on if you are running a corporate account or not, are not helpful in any way. I've lived in countries, I've experienced countries where banks are actually helping you to expand your business, not using your money to charge you multiple taxation. As an example, if you leave money in your account as a business owner and you're registered, of course, as a business owner, the likelihood of that money appreciating is almost impossible in Nigeria. Rather, what happens at the end of the month is that you get charged by your bank for just leaving money inside that bank. This doesn't happen anywhere in the world but in Nigeria. And so there are multiple challenges to this concept of ease of doing business in Nigeria that makes it very difficult for the youth to operate a business, and not only to operate a business, to expand that business. Because the idea of a small and medium scale industry is not only for you to be successful, but for you to also expand. And then so that once you expand, you'll be able to employ more youths. And the moment you employ more youths, then you are reducing the unemployment challenge within the country. It's not for government to provide employment, really. What government should do is ease these mechanisms for doing business, allow businesses to propagate, and once they propagate, then they will be able to employ more persons.
All right, back to the issue now, the crime rate. So what can government do at this point? How do they go about it to reduce the rate at which some youths engage in crime as part of efforts to, of course, tackle the issue? What would you suggest the government do at this time?
So we, at the beginning, we talked about the drivers of insecurity that are making youth go into it. So it's to address these drivers. So one of them is to look at the value system. What are the reasons why is the value system depreciated? Why is it that as a people, those things that we hold dear are no longer what they used to be? Why is it that people worship money nowadays? Now, the best way to change that, recently, one organization called API, African Polling Institute, headed by Professor Bell Rua, released a social cohesion report, very instructive. I would advise every government official to read that report. It speaks a lot around why our value systems has depreciated as a country and what can be done to improve social cohesion within the country. So to address this depreciating value system, we need to look at our educational system. We need to look at our family system. Why is it that people give birth to children and they don't take care of them? People tend to focus on the north, but no, the north is not alone. Even in the southwest and southeastern countries, mothers and fathers kind of abandon this responsibility to maids and name them. They are busy chasing money, but don't really have time for their children. And so that value system that we're supposed to give to our children, we're no longer giving it. And so we need to address that. We need to address the family system, talk to ourselves and make sure that we hold that reason for being together as a family dear, and we rejuvenate it. Then we also need to look at the religious institutions, and I'm very happy just yesterday the Vice President actually spoke to this issue when he advised religious leaders to be fair in promoting equity and justice. And not only that, in promoting issues around integrity. Most of the corrupt persons that we're talking about either go to churches or mosques. They contribute to these churches and mosques, and we collect those contributions as religious leaders. So religious leaders also need to talk about this, address youths, talk about values, remind youths of the importance of values, so that youths do that. Then educational institutions, this emphasis on certificates, and any way you get the certificate, the cesspool that is around the educational system in Nigeria, honestly, 1 hour will not be enough for us to talk about it. But anyone who is going through the four walls of our schools understand how our educational system has depreciated, how parents, bribe lecturers and teachers, how students bribe lecturers and teachers to get their way through schools. I don't need to talk a lot about this. Everybody knows it's happening. We're behaving like the proverbial ostrich that hides its head when our body is exposed. So we need to talk about our value systems and rejuvenate our value systems. And I've mentioned it, the core areas. The media too has a responsibility in this regard. Sometimes we popularize things that shouldn't be, mainly to achieve an agenda. I think the media has a responsibility as the fourth estate of the realm to remind Nigerians of this value system, so that from time to time, Nigerians are reminded and they are brought back to what we hold dearly as a nation, not this love for money that has blinded us to our values as a people, as a society. Then I talked about the criminal justice system that is failing to punish and penalize offenders. Youth see this, and it allows them to go into criminality. If I give you the example of the average Fulani man who maybe inherited 4 cows from his father, now the value of those cows is 4 million naira, and he's working hard to raise those cows to, in terms of rearing and livestock management. And then all of a sudden he sells those cows. The best he can get is 1 million naira. But his fellow mate who goes into kidnapping, conducts one kidnapping incident, makes 10 million naira, makes 100 million naira, builds the house. He's not able to build the house. Meanwhile, that person is living large. The law is not arresting him, it's not punishing him. So at what point would this person decide, well, I'm done rearing these cattle, let me also join the kidnapping gang? It cuts across the whole country.
It does. It does actually. It looks as if we have a lot of work to do, or as a government, they have a lot of work to do. But now that you mentioned the issue of kidnapping, like it is no play at all. How can they? And there's a lot of youths involved in this. How can the government go about this the right way to bring it to a halt?
It's simple, really. Make the criminal justice system more effective. And this so by making sure anyone who commits any act of criminality or offense is arrested and is punished, irrespective of his religion, his race, his ethnicity, his age. Once we do that, then the deterrence element within the criminal justice system will be enough to make sure youths don't become involved. Because no matter how much you love money, if you decide to do something illegal and you are arrested, that desire for money would leave. The moment you know that if you offend, you will be arrested and you'll be punished. But the moment you offend and then you're not arrested, you are able to enjoy the proceeds of your offense, then unfortunately more people will join that offense. So it's the simple answer to your question is, let's make the criminal justice system more effective. And the criminal justice system comprises of 3 things. It comprises of law enforcement, it comprises of the courts, and then the correctional services. So all of these 3 things have to be made more effective. The law enforcement that is supposed to find and arrest offenders, the court system that is supposed to prosecute these offenders, and then the prison service or the correctional services that is supposed to hold these offenders. All of these 3 things have to be made more effective. That's the simple answer. And when we talk of law enforcement, it includes all the agencies of government, starting from the police down to, name them, NDLEA. All of them have a responsibility in this regard. Offenses are things that are defined by our constitution, by our laws. So time would not allow me to go to each and every one of these offenses. But there are agencies of government, ministries, departments, and agencies whose responsibility it is to identify and to arrest any offender. NAFDAC, as an example. Why is it that people are still able to make food items that are below standard? The Standard Organization of Nigeria, all these are law enforcement agencies that have responsibility. So the listener should not think I'm talking about the police alone. I'm talking of all agencies of government that have responsibility for law enforcement and who should be able to arrest offenders and then take them to the next step, which is the court. The courts also have that responsibility to look at the evidence presented before them and prosecute whoever it is that is brought before them.
Powerful. At this point, I think I would say Magana Yakari. But yes, you spoke so well. Dr. Kabir Adamu is an enterprise security risk management expert and the CEO of Beacon Consulting. And yes, we are looking at ways to engage youths to reduce their involvement in crime. Okay, so in summary, before we go, I want you to tell us, okay, so what is the solution? How can youths get engaged? How can government engage youths so that we reduce the crime rate in the nation? In the nation. In summary, Dr. Kabir. But to all of you, you can drop your comments, ask your questions, and please share this video so that the youth somewhere will get the message. Go ahead, Doctor.
Sylvia, number 1 is youth need to mobilize and get themselves together. It is sad that today Nigerian youths are not united. There are too many conflicting youth organizations in the country that don't see eye to eye. The number one thing that youths need to do is to come together, drop all of this conflicting interest that is stopping them from, uniting. And I know most of these interests are self-benefiting. The moment those self-benefiting interests are dropped, then hopefully youths will be able to come together. Once youths come together, the next thing is to mobilize and agree on certain principles. What are these principles as an example? So as a good starting point would be, what do we want as youths in terms of our expectations for the next few years? One, I think that almost all youth will agree to is the prerequisites for good employment. And I've talked about it, infrastructure. We're about to head into 2023. If youth come together and identify this, what I will call priorities, then they should be able to communicate. If youths form more than 60% of the population in the country, and then they prioritize their needs and communicate this to the political class. In fact, I would also add a point. Let youth start taking over from that political class so that they find ways to make these things that are prioritized to achieve them. So if we agree that infrastructure is a prerequisite for the advancement of medium and small scale industries, then youth should be able to communicate in clear terms to the political class that we want you in the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years, to solve this infrastructure challenge in Nigeria. So any political party that presents to youth a clear agenda for solving this infrastructure challenge should be the political party that youth should vote for. In the absence of that, I don't think youths have any other option in the country. Like I said, number one is to come together. Number two is to agree on priorities. Then number three, more importantly, is to now communicate this to the political class that this is what we want. I cannot think of any other option than this that I've mentioned, vis-a-vis the rundown to 2023.
Your options are powerful, and I hope somebody takes a cue from here. Well, thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Kabir has spoken so well on the issue of youth's involvement in crime in Nigeria and ways to reduce it. Hopefully, we'll bring you back on board next time to discuss something on security. Thank you so much, Doctor. You've done so well.
My pleasure, Sylvia.
Dr. Kabir Adamo is an enterprise security risk management expert and the CEO of Beacon Consulting. And to all of you who joined us today, thank you so much for your time, for sharing this video, for commenting, and for just liking Click Niger content. Remember, you can stand a chance to be our fan crush on a Friday if you continue to do what you do on our pages. Okay, we're on Instagram, we're at Click Niger, on YouTube, Click Niger, and on Facebook right here, Click Niger. My name is Sylvia Ishewe. I'll make a return next week for another interesting edition of Youth Assembly. Thank you for your time, and to my producer, Ihoma Ukeje, thank you also. Bye for now, and have a fantastic day.